Hi, I am Jan Erka, the creator of Urantiapedia. In this video, I'm going to show how you can set up your computer to make contributions to Urantiapedia. We are going to learn it through the simplest way, using just a text editor, so there are no special requirements or skills needed. Anyone can contribute. This video is going to be part of a series of tutorials about how to collaborate in Urantiapedia. The points we are going to learn here are these. First, how to download the files from GitHub. Two options are available: downloading all the project or downloading only required files. Next, how to edit the files in a text editor. And finally, what is the structure of the GitHub project. So, let's go with it. The project files for Urantiapedia are stored in GitHub. GitHub is a web page for creating collaborative projects, usually about software development. Urantiapedia has one project here. This is the URL. You can type the URL in the browser or go to github.com and type Urantiapedia in the search box. This project is public. Anybody can create a copy of the project, add contributions to the copy, and send the changes. Maintainers of the project then can accept or reject changes and add them to existing content. GitHub has tools that make this process very easy and very fast. To download the files, you have two options. It is completely up to you what option to use. You can download everything in the project. This is the best option for contributors that are going to work in several tasks of Urantiapedia. Or you can download only the files needed. This option is more simple for contributors that are going to help just in one task. To download everything, go to main page of the project in GitHub and in the green button that says Code, select the option Download zip. The browser will start downloading a zip file with the most updated content. Save it in any folder or check your Downloads folder to locate the file. Be aware that it can be a long download because the project contains a good amount of files. You should have at least 200 or 300 megabytes of free space in your computer. Once downloaded, you will have a file called Urantiapedia master.zip. This is a compressed file, so please uncompress it in any folder. If you don't know how to uncompress a zip file, it is very easy. In Windows, for example, right-click with the mouse in the file and select Extract All to open the uncompression tool. Once the files are uncompressed, you're ready to go to next step with the text editor. In the case that you don't want to download all the project, you can do this. Go to this URL in the browser. This is the path with the files. You can move through folders in GitHub page. When you need one file, right-click with the mouse on the name of the file and select Save Link As. That will bring you the dialog to save each file. This way, you can choose which files you want to download, which is better option if you don't have very much free space in your hard drive or if you do not require a full project. So, now let's see how we can edit the files in a text editor. To edit the files, we can use any tool that can edit TXT files. However, it is highly recommended to use software that can show hidden characters and white space. It is important to show them because these extra chars are used to create the structure of files, and if we remove them, we can corrupt files. So the most recommended software is Visual Studio Code, but others that are similar can do the same job. For example, Notepad++, Atom or Sublime. All of them are free to use. To download Visual Studio Code, go here. Download it and install it. During installation, it is recommended to check the option Add Action Open with Code to folder. That it's something that you can then use later in the context menu. Open it, open Visual Studio Code. The first time it is opened, you can set up some settings, skip them all. To open a file, go to File menu and then select Open Folder. Then select the folder with the full project or only with the folders that you have downloaded from GitHub. Now you have the files in Visual Studio Code, so double click in any of the files to open the files. One extension that can make life easier is Sync Scroll. This extension allows to scroll in several files in parallel, something that helps a lot when editing multiple languages at the same time. To install this extension, go to the Extensions panel, type Sync Scroll in the search box, click in Install button in the extension. Now it is installed, and you can see there a button in the status bar of Visual Studio Code, so you can switch the Sync Scroll on or off. So let's have a look at what the files are inside the project. These are the folders you're going to find in the project. Some of them are useful for us, and others can be ignored. I will be explaining the content of them. First, we have a .vs Code folder. This is a config folder with files for Visual Studio Code. We can ignore this folder. Then is a app folder. This is the source code in JavaScript for a software called Urantiapedia Tools that helps to bring all the content in the project to the Urantiapedia webpage. We can ignore this folder also. Then we have a CSS folder. There are some CSS files with default styling. We can ignore this folder also. Then is a docs folder with project documentation, nothing that we need to worry about. And finally, we have an input folder. This is the folder that anybody contributing to Urantiapedia needs to check. This is the main folder with input files. And here we have different folders with different type of formats. We have a folder HTML with files in HTML format. It contains mainly the Urantia book original and translations from Urantia Foundation website. And each translation is in a different folder. Folders are book N for English, book S for Spanish, book FR for French, etc. Then we have a folder, JSON. JSON is a format that is very used in some software development. It contains the Urantia book original and translations created from the HTML files. And we have in three different ways. One is the version without the Paramoney footnotes that are in the folders that are called book N, book S, book FR, etc. Then we have the Urantia book versions, but with the Paramoney included. These are the book N footnotes, book S footnotes, etc. And then we have files, individual files, called with names like footnotes, book N, JSON, book notes, footnotes, book S, JSON, etc. These are the Paramount footnotes in JSON format. Next, we have a folder called MediaWiki. We can ignore absolutely this folder. There are older files from a previous version of Durantiapedia. Then we have a text folder. This contains the Bible translations in a LaTeX format. The Bible is in its translation is in one folder. For example, Bible S is the Bible in English. Bible N is the Bible in English, etc. Next, we have TXT folder that contains all the files in TXT format. For example, there are articles, or will be articles. Right now, there are not very much of them, just sample articles. But in the future, there will be articles about Durantia book. Then we have references to the Bible, but these files are deprecated. We don't need these files anymore, so we can ignore them. And finally, we have a folder called topic index that contains the topic index translations for different languages. These are TXT files inside of it. Finally, we have a wiki.js folder, which has some input that is created manually for the Urantiapedia. So, this is the structure of the project, but what are the folders that any contributor needs to be worried about? Just 4 folders, no more. The one in input HTML book, and then the code of the translation. These are the initial content for the Durantia book in each HTML format. Next, the input JSON folder that contains versions of the Durantia book, but now with footnotes added using the Paramount. Next, the third folder we need to worry about is the input text Bible and the code of the translation. That are different versions of the Bible. And finally, the fourth folder we need to check are input TXT topic index and the code of the translation that contains the topic index. In the future, more folders will be needed to the next task that we have in the next milestones for Urantiapedia. But that will be part of another video tutorial in this series. So, just to summarize, if we want to create the content, for example, for the French language that currently is not available, what are the folders that we need? So, this is the structure that needs to be created there. We need to create the input folder, it's now created. We need to create the HTML folder, that's created also, and inside it we need to create a folder called book FR. Inside this folder, we need to put all the HTML files with the Urantia book. Then we need to create inside the JSON folder 2 subfolders, one called book FR, and this folder will be populated with the files that Urantiapedia Tools is going to create for us. Now we need to create a folder called book FR footnotes, and again the content, the JSON files that are going to be there, are going to be created by the Durantiapedia Tools again. And finally, we need to make a copy of the footnotes book N in English and rename it to footnotes book FR to French .json. This is going to be the file with the footnotes in the Paramount. Next, we need to create a text folder, it's already available, and inside it create a subfolder called Bible FR. inside it we will be adding a version, any available version of the Bible in French that is free of copyright. And finally, in the txt folder that we have right now, we need to create a folder, a subfolder called topic index fr, and inside it we are going to need a copy of the topic index in English, but copied to this subfolder topic index fr for French. So we have a copy in English, and then the work consists there in translate from English to French. And we can repeat all this work for any of the languages that we are going to support in Durantiapedia. So that's all for me in this video. I don't want to create very long videos for this series, so I'm going to stop here, and in the next video I will be explaining the first of the tasks that we have for creating this content inside Durantiapedia. So thanks for your attention, and stay tuned for the next videos. See you. Bye.